Greetings, cinephiles. Are you looking for a movie analysis podcast that stands above the rest? Then look no further than Collateral Cinema, the only movie podcast that matters.
We analyze good movies, we analyze bad movies, and yes, we also analyze the in-betweens of the world of cinema.
So if you like what you hear, find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
And yes, my friends, we are 420 friendly. So when you listen to us, smoke it if you've got it. And now, here's a new episode of Collateral Gaming. The show starts right now.
I'm Ashley Chancellor.
And I'm Beau Maddox.
And this is Collateral Gaming. Welcome to Collateral Gaming, the only video game podcast that matters, where we focus on good games, bad games, and everything else in between in the world of gaming. We are podcasting straight from somewhere in South Texas, and yes, my friends, we are a 420 friendly podcast, so whatever you have, smoke it if you've got it.
Yeah, exactly. And as far as the games that we are talking about here,
yeah,
this is quite a thing, honestly. I think that we have a bona fide masterpiece here.
Yes, it's now time for Collateral Gaming's Logic and Reasoning Spectacular on the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles.
Oh, yeah, man. I was excited to play these games, man. I mean, especially on the Nintendo Switch, so I was able to take it with me to work and whatnot and play it while at work. Mm-hmm. Oh, man, geez, I was blown away by this.
This is a series that I think is best played mobile, which is funny because I think you've played through both the trilogy and the Apollo Justice trilogy on PS4, but I originally played these games on mobile, actually, except the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles is not on mobile, so I played these on Switch originally. Gotta say, the Switch port, no issues, very, very good. And these games in particular are like the closest, if not surpassing the quality of the original trilogy.
I think that honestly, this game is better than anything in the original trilogy. It's a fitting prequel for, like especially a historical prequel for the series. Being that Ryunosuke, he is Phoenix Wright's actual ancestor.
Right, which is interesting because in the Japanese version, he's Ryuichiro Naruhodo. And so, his ancestor being Ryunosuke Naruhodo makes a lot of sense. But I guess it's more of a matrilineal line in the localized version.
I see. Yeah, I see how that would make sense.
Yeah, we can still make it make sense. His ancestor's Japanese. After all, the Ace Attorney world takes place in Japanifornia, so not surprising that the majority of its cast would have Japanese ancestors.
But even so, even with the whole Japanifornia thing, this right here is a little more grounded in actual historical reality than any of those games, a little bit.
Yeah, so this is set during the Victorian... it's set during the Meiji period of Japan and in Victorian London. And you hop between the both, mostly London.
Yeah, this is somewhere in between, I think, 1864 and 1912 or something like that. It's somewhere in between there.
Yeah, I want to say turn of the 1900s. Around the time that the Sherlock Holmes stories were being published. I mean, that's kind of a good frame of reference there. And also we have the real-life historical figure Soseki Natsume.
Absolutely, yeah.
So this game takes place during that era, which makes it really interesting, and also kind of grounds it in a more realistic setting, so to speak. In fact, there really are no supernatural elements in these games as opposed to the mainline games.
Not even in the least bit. We don't get any Kurain Village type bull crap. Yeah. But I mean, I love the grounded reality of the gameplay and everything.
Well, and Great Ace Attorney replaces supernatural with technology that's a little bit
ahead of its time. Yeah, it's very steampunk.
Yeah, especially with Herlock Sholmes's and Iris Wilson's contraptions, and especially once you get to the end of the game, it almost gets kind of a little bit ridiculous at the end of the second game. This episode, we're actually going to be talking about the first game, the Great Ace Attorney Adventures, in part 1, and then part 2 we'll cover the Great Ace Attorney Resolve.
Absolutely.
So I'll stick away from talking about spoilers of the second game, especially since Beau has not yet played those cases yet, but we are going to go through each of the cases of the very first game, and really, the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles are two halves of one story.
Yeah.
So, they're much less standalone than any of the other previous games,
especially with the cases themselves. I mean, they're all interconnected in their own way and have an actual through line through all of them. So,
yeah, and in a way, there really are no filler cases in this duology.
No, not at all.
And you'll see that come to a head, especially once everything kind of wraps up and everything. In fact, the pacing of this at times does seem a little bit odd, because it's really not until the fourth case that you actually have a proper trial, like full investigation and trial.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like, in a way, you have like two first cases with an investigation case kind of wedged in between, sort of. And then it just kind of leads into the final two cases a little bit.
Yeah, well, maybe let's just get into, I guess, the cases here.
Yeah.
So starting off with the first one, this would be the case of the Great Departure, I believe. The Adventure of the Great Departure?
No, it's the Adventure of the Great Departure, or the Adventure of the Visiting Professor, or is that something else?
No, there's no. It's definitely Great Departure here. I'm going to pull up the case list though, just so.
Yeah. Let's do that. We may as well.
But yeah, case one is the Adventure of the Great Departure, and this is the trial where it's a trial only, as tutorial cases often are, where you are introduced to Ryunosuke Naruhodo and his friend Kazuma Asogi, who is going to represent him as a lawyer. Ryunosuke he's been accused of the murder of a visiting professor. And he finds himself in what is actually quite a remarkable trial, considering the tension between Britain and Japan at the time, as the visiting professor was from England.
Yeah, I mean, this is a hell of an international incident that's kind of unfolding between these two rivaling empires who are now trying to normalize relations with each other and everything.
Mind you, the victim is John H. Wilson, which is this game's version of John Watson.
Yeah, it's like, holy fuck, we already killed Watson, and we're only into the first case of the game. It's like, holy shit, we're already done with the Watson counterpart. And I mean, for one, I'm going to say this case was not vegan.
It's not vegan.
Way too many steaks. I hated all the steaks. I didn't like it.
It's a Western-themed restaurant in Japan.
Yeah, exactly. It's a steakhouse in Japan doing, and I guess there's a lot of British tourists there and expats and visiting professors and whatnot who are dining there. And Wilson gets shot, and Ryunosuke is accused of his murder.
Yeah, and through a sequence of events, actually finds himself defending himself instead of Kazuma, so as not to risk his friend's future as a visiting student in London as part of a cultural exchange.
Yeah.
So, and Ryunosuke actually finds out through this trial that he actually has a natural talent for lawyering, which basically kicks off the events of the game.
Yeah, and I love something that you pointed out earlier about the actual animations of Ryunosuke, like especially early on in the game, you see him very, very unsure of himself.
Yes.
I mean, he's whenever he slams on the courtroom banister, he is always looking down and everything nervously. Yeah. He's just completely like looking all over the place, just
wide-eyed, shuffling the papers nervously.
He's trying to be stoic but failing miserably,
and he doesn't even get a proper objection until midway through the first case.
No, he just says yes,
because he's nervous, and it's meant to show that he's out of his element here. He was meant to be a lawyer.
Exactly. Yeah.
But here he is defending himself, finding contradictions, and there's this great moment in the middle of the case where he says his first objection, where he's like, what is this? It's a conviction to break down the contradictions and lies. It's an animalistic desire to
Absolutely. It's the spirit of justice, man.
the spirit of justice, man. And he points his finger and he goes, objection, and you take down, you start taking down the culprit at this point, Miss Jezaiel Brett.
Oh, this bitch.
For once, the culprit wasn't spelled out to us right away in the tutorial case.
No, it really wasn't. I mean, she seemed like a pretty unassuming lady, but then when you start to really get into her testimony and everything and start peeling back the layers, you start to really see who she is. And, her racism and her classism starts to really kind of break through here.
Well, what I mean is it's not literally shown to you. Usually in tutorial cases, and sometimes even in other earlier cases, they'll actually show you who the culprit is.
Oh, no, yeah, you're right. Yeah, they'll straight up say it's like, oh, I that's right, I will pin it on him.
But that being said, I think it's pretty obvious it's her because once you've identified that there was a third party there, like, it has to be her. But like you said, there's a lot of doubt there, Like you said, she's kind of unassuming, and you're like, oh, so could this lady really be? But as you start breaking her down more, you're like, oh, no, yeah, this bitch is lying through her teeth.
Absolutely, yeah, she's lying straight through her teeth, and, oh, man, I mean, just taking her down is just one of the better moments in this case, and especially when she has her final freak out and that goddamn swan on her fucking head flies her up into heaven. I remember texting you that night I played it. I was like, what the fuck, Ash? This bitch is flying into heaven? What the fuck is this?
Yes.
Like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's pretty great. These games are no stranger to Ace Attorney's goofy character animations, and of course the over-the-top culprit witness breakdowns. But what's different about this versus the original trilogy, of course, or the first 4 games, I should say, is that it is the mainline games is that it's 3D. But unlike the latter mainline games, which were 3D, where I always felt like, I always liked the 2D better, I feel like Great Ace Attorney actually works in 3D. Like it's meant to be.
It does. It doesn't feel like it would work with the original style, or even with the updated style that they applied to to Apollo Justice, the first one.
Yeah,
it's like, I mean, you really can't view it any other way. I can't view it any other way, and especially the way that the animations actually work in this game. It's like, I mean, you need those 3D models to really properly express those emotions that they're showing.
Yeah, and of course have Kazuma's headband fly in the wind.
Absolutely,
in the courtroom.
Always flying in the wind, no matter what.
Well, no matter what, yeah. And you get introduced to a lot of characters through these animations. I mean, in this first case, of course, we have Inspector Hosonoga, who will make a reappearance in a couple more cases in this duology.
That poor man is not long for this world, is he?
He doesn't seem to be.
No, he obviously has something like tuberculosis or something.
And he's always in disguise.
Always in disguise. Every single time.
Yeah, he's great. Actually, almost kind of underutilized in this series. I mean, because he doesn't show up at all in the London sections of the game, which is the majority of these.
Yeah.
But the first case in both games takes place in Japan, so you kind of get to see the difference between the Japanese courtroom and the British courtroom, where they don't have as much of the forensic technology that's just being discovered in Britain.
Yeah, and also this is the one case that really adheres more closely to the original Ace Attorney game loop and everything.
Yeah.
It feels more like classic Ace Attorney.
It does, yeah. I think it's a good bridge, for people, and it's also a good starting point. I'll still argue that the original trilogy is the best starting point, but this one's almost as good, really.
Exactly, yeah.
And so yeah, you kind of get introduced to the characters, to the mechanics, and there was something I wanted to say about this first case, but it seems to have escaped my mind.
Oh, okay.
I'll think of it.
Damn it. Marijuana affects the memory, Ash. Don't you know this?
Yeah, it does.
Damn it.
But, I just like how, for a first case, this one's actually it's pretty good actually, and there are even like a few like really like clever moments here and there, as you kind of figure out like how the victim was murdered.
Oh, exactly. And most all of the actual murders that are perpetrated in these not only in this case but also in further cases, they actually seem very plausible. Like you don't get a turnabout big top or a where you have this really admittedly huge stretch of logic, with the bust and the the magician's cape and everything. That's a very long, hard leap of logic there. But here it's like it all seems plausible. It's like, okay, yeah, that actually makes sense that it happened that way.
Right. It does. Each and every case does feel that way. There was something else I wanted to say about case 1, but I guess we might as well move on.
Okay.
Case 2, the adventure of the unbreakable speckled band.
Yeah.
A reference, of course, to the Sherlock Holmes story, The Adventure of the Speckled Band.
I absolutely love this case because it's just a complete breath of fresh air when it comes to the Ace Attorney franchise, because it's a full-on investigation.
Yeah, so you start out with a trial-only section, so far so good, and then you get to investigation-only segment, which is a series first. And the pacing of this game, again, does seem a little bit odd in comparison, but it works, especially when you play the games back-to-back. Which was great, that the fact that, when these did get localized years after their release in Japan, they came packaged together.
Exactly.
But this one's cool. It takes place on board a steamship. And you get introduced to my favorite character in the Ace Attorney franchise.
Yes.
Sherlock Sholmes.
Yes, my man, Hurley.
For whatever reason, because in the Japanese version, he is actually Sherlock Holmes. But for whatever reason, I don't know why, because the character should be in the... in the public domain.
Yeah, he's in the public domain, so I don't know why they actually changed it around, except maybe to just kind of fit into the whole... Ace Attorney naming tradition of just kind of, quirky names and whatnot.
Perhaps, or maybe there was some kind of issue.
There may have been. I'm not sure.
They took the Arsène Lupin route.
yeah, pretty much.
And just named him Sherlock Sholmes. It's obvious who he is. I've got to say, this may be my very favorite incarnation of the Holmes character. Because, he's just so goofy. And yet, from what I've heard, he is actually very close to the canonical Holmes.
Very, very close. Let me tell you, I actually, for Christmas one year, got an omnibus book of the entire fucking Holmes canon.
Yeah.
Everything. I read all that shit. And just watching this character, he's perfect. He's almost literally perfect, except for maybe the stretches that he makes in his deductions. You know?
And here we get to the dance of deduction, which is one of my favorite new mechanics in this series.
Yeah, and something that another reason why this case is a favorite of mine, because we get introduced to the dance of deduction, which is which adds a great technical flair to the actual investigations.
It makes the investigations a lot more fun. In the past, investigations kind of felt like that's where you're sort of dragging your feet, where the pacing kind of comes to a crawl at times in the games. And the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles managed to fix some of those issues. And one of those is by introducing these dance of deduction sections. You actually look forward to them in each case. Because they're a lot of fun, and they're not like insanely difficult, but they're these sort of, puzzles that you have to figure out, and you feel really clever when you do them.
Seriously. And for one, I just love the deductions that Sherlock comes up with first, It's like some of them are just like, my man, what are you talking about? Some of them I'm pretty sure are even taken from the actual Sherlock Holmes stories.
Yes. So
the whole speckled band thing here, that was an actual solution to one of his stories.
It was, and that's what makes it great. But yeah, Sholmes's deductions are a little bit off, and this is where the character appears to differ, right, from the canon, is that he seems like he's a bit of an idiot. Now, in my opinion, though, I don't know that the series ever properly like directly spells it out for you, but I think it's pretty obvious that he's just kind of trolling everybody and that he really does actually know the real solution the whole time.
You're right. He pretty much knows exactly what's up. And also, he has his ear on the underbelly of London and everything, so he kind of has an idea. I mean, much like the original Holmes, the original Holmes, he had a very real familiarity with the actual, undercurrent of London and also the underworld and everything. Like, he kind of knew how that world worked a little bit, so he can and he put that into his deductions and whatnot.
Yeah, but I love these dance of deductions because Sholmes will come up with this grandiose solution, and so what you're supposed to do is take his deductions, take his observations, and point to what he really should be making, should be noticing, or a piece of evidence, in place of what he's suggesting in order to swap around. Because, his deductions are always somewhat on the mark. They get the whoever you're questioning on edge.
Well, I think that it undercuts Hurley's actual brilliance is that, in a way, he is kind of hand-holding your way through those deductions to kind of come to those conclusions.
I think, in a sense, at a certain point, he's actually training Ryunosuke and showing him. And you'll see once you come full circle and you get to, like, the final dance of deduction in this series, because it actually, it really kind of puts everything into perspective. But if you'll notice, almost all the time when he suggests that someone's furtive glance is pointing in a direction, but he suggests the wrong object, like the other thing is right immediately in the vicinity. So it's like I said, I think to me, it's fairly obvious that, Sholmes is trying to direct them to the correct item.
He is, yeah.
But it's still a lot of fun just breaking apart these ridiculous solutions with more plausible explanations and them even kind of lampshading the whole thing by using, and more than one case actually, the solution in the canon.
Yeah.
As the more, but wait a second, how could you, snakes don't have ears, how could you control a snake? And
and also snakes don't consume milk
or crawl up.
Or crawl up. They're not really capable of crawling up a wall like that, not unless there's a way for them to get up there.
And in this case, by the way, the victim is Kazuma, your best friend.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
The one who was willing to stand for Ryunosuke in court, but, Ryunosuke ended up representing himself. But Kazuma was there by his side and constantly believed in him, and he was the one providing the legal advice and showing, Ryunosuke how to do it. And so you'd already felt this camaraderie between them. So his death actually comes as a bit of a loss. And what really sucks is how he died, right? Because it's like it could have been avoided.
No, it's so fucking avoidable, and honestly, it's what made me feel generally bad for the actual culprit of this case. I mean, I don't think she meant to do what she did.
This Nikolina Pavlova.
Yeah, Pavlona. It's like, no,
Russian ballerina.
Russian ballerina. She no killer. She no purpose killer. She manslaughter maybe. Killer yet.
Yeah, we have her and the Russian crewman.
Mm-hmm, who are characters in their own right.
Beef Stroganoff.
Beef Stroganoff. No, I love how Stroganoff, if you look at his character model and even in the cut scene, you can already see that the marks that his snake has been leaving on his face. So when the snake actually shows up, it's like, oh, I think I see what's going on. No, this isn't Pavlona's snake. This is his.
Yeah, and so that's one of those things that, like, you could take notice early on, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But, like, it's not immediately obvious. I mean, I don't know if I would have thought of, he has this strange skin pattern, but I don't know if I would have thought of the snake wrapping around him. But then it does wrap around him in exactly the marking. So if you connect 2 and 2, then you might think, oh, no, this is actually his pet snake.
Yeah, it's like, wait a second. It's like, I remember that from earlier. It's like, and that's why, in a way, this game is actually more rewarding of real observation than even some of the original mainline Ace Attorney games.
Especially in the succeeding case, in case 3, it will actually fuck with you because, if you examine a piece of evidence at one point, you'll actually see, that it's, well, I guess we can go ahead and get into it.
Yeah, we may as well. Go ahead.
Case 3 is actually super interesting, and it's specifically because of this. So, you look at the
it's an omnibus.
At the omnibus, right?
And it's the actual scene of this fucking crime.
Right.
that they brought into court.
If you happen to look inside the compartment, you can see that there's a bunch of things in the compartment and there's no way that somebody could fit inside. You may also notice that there are no bloodstains on the inside, on the floor.
Exactly.
So if you are paying attention and examining all of the evidence, as you're getting it, this case will really fuck with you later on when you find that evidence, that the evidence has been forged, or that it's been modified.
I saw it right away. Once I saw that bloodstain, it's like, oh, that wasn't there.
Yeah.
It's like, and then opening up, it's like, wait, that's empty. Well, opening up the carriage, where the carriage man, he carries all his stuff. It's like,
right.
The trunk.
So this is the first, somewhat, proper case in this game, where it's a real trial in the British courtroom. So Ryunosuke has traveled from Japan. Kazuma brought him on board the steamship as a stowaway because he felt that he had a natural talent for lawyering and he wanted to come with him on his foreign exchange student trip. But Kazuma dies. So at the end of the preceding case, they decide to take the month-long voyage on sea so that Ryunosuke can cram everything he needs to know about law so he can take Kazuma's place. He manages to convince Lord Male Stronghort to do so.
With some gentle pleading by none other than Susato Mikotoba, who we actually failed to point out was introduced formally in the last case. And
your judicial assistant.
And she initially thinks that you're a filthy murderer and fucking judo flips you Susato takedown in front of everybody. And she does that quite a few times, that Susato takedown.
Yeah.
It's like, that's like her signature move pretty much.
Even after, Ryunosuke's been cleared as a culprit and like, she's totally loyal to him or whatever.
And she'll still flip his ass over. It's like, damn.
Here's something very interesting about the Great Ace Attorney adventures, in my opinion, okay? The tutorial case and the case immediately after, the defendant is Ryunosuke himself.
Exactly.
So that you're not guilty. There's no doubt whatsoever. That's why the third case really throws you for a loop. He's representing somebody with no time to investigate, no time. I mean, there is technically an investigation section, but it's literally just talking to people and being told to go represent this man with no knowledge of who he is.
Absolutely none whatsoever.
Mr.
No.
Magnus McGilded.
Ooh, this Irish bastard. Oh, shit. First you think he's just so charitable.
Yeah.
With such a huge heart. I mean, hey, the local park is named after him, It's McGilded Park. That one old lady's just like, oh, I love that park. It's so nice and pleasant.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, he seems so nice, but no. I started to really, really have doubts about him like almost halfway through this case.
And you're meant to, I think, especially
exactly.
if you're taking notice of evidence, like I mentioned, and noticing where the story doesn't add up. And so it actually starts becoming apparent, that maybe he isn't actually innocent for once. One of the few cases in this franchise where the defendant is actually guilty of the crime. And in this case, the only other case where a defendant was actually guilty of murder was Matt Ongard.
Yeah, I remember Ongard, and he was a real bastard.
Yeah. So, and this is early, right? Like that comes into, that's at the end of the second game in Phoenix Wright's trilogy. This is Ryunosuke's first like proper case that he's taking on as a lawyer.
And it already stinks to high heaven.
And this is case 3, of the game, which is really odd to think about, right?
Yeah, traditionally, third cases don't really do well in this franchise.
Typically, they're filler cases, and yet this one is actually pretty significant.
It's the most. It's quite possibly the most important case in the entire game because it establishes McGilded. It establishes that there's something greater at work here.
Yeah.
And then then that's understated by the fact that McGilded is dead by the end of the case. So,
yeah. So you are You managed to secure him a not guilty verdict, but at the end you're like, is he really guilty or not?
That's right. Remember, this is something that I do whenever I finish a case or I get a not guilty verdict in Ace Attorney. Is I text our group chat, and I text it's like so and so is not guilty, And this time, though, I was just like, Magnus McGilded is allegedly not guilty.
And that question is not answered until the final case of this game.
No, it's not. It's like I immediately had doubts, and I was just like, no, something's not right about this. And when you're actually asked if anything was actually askew in the omnibus, I went ahead and says like, no, something's wrong there. It's like, and got a not so great response from McGilded. He was like, what are you doing, you son of a bitch? It's like, nah, you Irish bastard. It's like, you're foul.
And Ryunosuke's still learning, what it means to be a lawyer, what it means to believe in your client, but also to pursue the truth, whatever the truth may reveal. And so this case really weighs on him. And of course, we get introduced to the Reaper of the Bailey.
Ooh,
one
Barrett.
of my favorite, if not my favorite prosecutor in the franchise, Barrick von Zieks.
Barrett von Zieks is such a fucking arrogant asshole, but I love him.
Racist prosecutor.
Racist ass motherfucker. But it's like, oh my God, it's like there's just something about him. He's just charming.
Pray forgive the discourtesy of filling my hallowed chalice while in court.
He's straight up just drinking cup after cup of red wine.
He's got nothing
Bailey.
on him with the coffee, right?
No, nothing with him. I think he smashes even more fucking chalices than Godot does coffee mugs.
Yeah, so he fills the chalices with wine. He breaks them, flings bottles into the gallery, and slams his boot on the desk.
And always asks for that we forgive his discourtesy.
Right. Although there's like one or two instances where he'll do it and then he just says nothing, and then Ryunosuke's like,
"What? Forgive the discourtesy here? Like, what the fuck?"
Yeah. And what's funny is if you press him about it when you investigate his office at one point, he says something about how like, well, if these wine bottles are so expensive, why are you always casually flinging them around? And he's like, I only do so whenever, you make an inane remark, my learned friend, or whatever. So it's like, it's your fault that you're wasting.
It's your fault that you're wasting my expensive ass Bordeaux. It's like it's your fault, my learned Nipponese friend.
Yeah. So this guy, Barrick van Zieks, is the Reaper of the Bailey, a mystery not resolved in this by the conclusion of this game. Right. Supposedly that everybody he ever prosecutes meets a bad fate if they somehow get acquitted in court, and he only typically prosecutes cases where like he truly they're like the most heinous criminals, and he truly believes they're guilty, so even if they manage to secure an acquittal through bribery or whatnot, somehow the defendants always end up dead by mysterious circumstances, whether by natural causes or acts of God.
Alleged acts of God.
Yeah, so it's a bit odd, but supposedly there has been no connection found between Van Zieks and these incidents, and so he's been allowed to prosecute.
Which honestly is kind of telling how quickly McGilded was offed, if that's the case. I mean, he was pretty much offed like that night.
Yeah. And so again, it's the curse of the Reaper strikes. Mm-hmm. It's like he secures an acquittal, and yet the dude burns in his own carriage in the courtroom or the omnibus.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Which, by the way, is a cool setting for a murder, right?
It is, man. It's a classic setting, especially in Victorian England, And it kind of stays true to how that type of traffic actually was in Victorian England as well. Like you have the, like the fucking carriageman, and then you have like the top of the carriage, and then you have the actual inside and everything, and then you have and also the price for a ride and whatnot. It's like they stuck they stayed true to that.
They do. It's a real interesting setting. You have a couple of interesting witnesses, and of course you get introduced to Gina Lestrade.
Oh hell yeah, Jenny.
Yeah, which, you might recognize the name from the Sherlock Holmes stories, except Lestrade is an inspector in the story. So interesting to see where her character journey goes in this duology. I won't say a whole lot more, but you do get introduced to her in this case, and you realize that she may know more than she lets on.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she even has a device that she lifted from Iris and Hurley.
Because she's a pickpocket.
Yeah, she's a diver.
Diva.
She's a diver.
Yeah, I love, by the way, how they managed to convey all of these accents in game. Like you'll hear us like doing the accents because when you're reading this, they managed to. The localization team did a great job of actually like emulating the intricacies of the pronunciations of these various dialects.
Like for instance, I mean, on the streets of London at that time, not everybody was Cockney. Cockney is a very, very specific kind of dialect there. And I mean, there's also the more working class type of dialects, and then you even have dialects not of the upper class, like the middle class, like the Garadebs, which is kind of posh, but still a little more grounded.
And then you have Fairplay, who's an Australian.
Yeah.
And McGilded, who's an Irishman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, he's a classic Irishman.
Yeah.
Like, straight up like top of the morning to you.
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing. And also just Hurley and Iris. So like, I mean, they just have very proper upper middle class British accents.
Yes. Let us begin our art of deduction.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
There's a couple of gameplay mechanics, or actually, there's one gameplay mechanic that's introduced in this section, and one that we skipped over from before. But in this case, we are introduced to the summation examination. Another one of my favorite new gameplay mechanics in this duology, because what it is it's a second chance. The British courts in this game, in these games, have a jury, and so at some point during the trial, if all of the jurors unanimously vote guilty, and at least once in every trial they will.
That fucking jury, man. When they just all say guilty. They haven't even heard any testimony. They barely heard any testimony.
Well,
they haven't seen any
it's
evidence.
Pretty damning because it's like a locked room.
Exactly.
But still, it's like a lot of times sometimes it's just because you're Japanese. I mean, racism is a big part of this game's subplot, like
a very big part, the undercurrent of racism and classism in Victorian England, and also how absolutely stratified society actually was at that time there, and how that stratification within the British Empire kind of translated to their actual diplomacy and the way that they, viewed and their more colonial aspects and everything, and the way that they viewed those aspects. So yeah, I mean, it's very interesting to like how they really kind of made a commentary on the society of that time, and and also makes it relevant to today. And I mean, I don't know if it was you who brought it up, or it may have been one of the videos that we brought it up, but I mean, there's some speculation that maybe the reason why this game series, this duology, wasn't released up till now was because of that more overt racism that was present in the British segments.
But it's kind of like when you're reading something like To Kill a Mockingbird, like it's part of the context,
or even in the actual Holmes canon itself.
Right. So
there's a few moments where even phrenology is brought up in the original. And that was contemporary at that time. It wasn't dismissed as quackery at the time. That was kind of seen as its own science and everything. So, and that had unfortunate implications and whatnot.
The historical setting really just makes this plot all the more interesting, and that's exemplified a lot of times by the jury, because you've got what seemed to be a random selection of British citizens, and what's funny is that the art designer was told to just kind of not to give them. Really, they didn't need to have quirks like witnesses do in Ace Attorney, but to just kind of just make regular characters. But the designs that got picked were the ones that had quirks.
Yeah, they're all the quirkiest motherfuckers you can find, man. I mean,
and somehow, and they actually lampshade this in game. Somehow, you end up coming across the same jurors.
You do, dude. That first time, I remember in the next case after the Garadebs, like seeing John Garadeb up there. I'm like, wait. No, even in the Garadev's case, when Miss Garadev is up there, when Joan Garadev, I'm like, wait, hold up.
And Bruce Fairplay?
And Bruce Fairplay's like, wait a second.
One of the witnesses in the previous
it's
trial
like,
shows up in Soseki's. Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck are you doing here? It's like... And then the Russian, and then later on the Russian revolutionary shows up. He's just like, I am. It's like he's just trying to read. It's like, hello.
I am going to visit Crystal Tower.
I am here to visit Crystal Tower. Duh. It's like.
But anyway, so the jury, if during a point during the trial they all. And they all, they will. It's scripted. They come to a guilty verdict. You have one last chance. It's this supposedly antiquated law, basically a footnote, because they're using an older legal textbook that calls for the summation examination, which is an opportunity to change the jurors' minds. What's interesting about this mechanic is that instead of presenting evidence against statements, you're actually finding contradictions among the jurors' statements themselves, pitting the jurors against each other. Sometimes you may have to press them or present evidence to get a statement that's going to work. But essentially, if you can change 4 out of the 6 jurors' minds, then the trial can continue. And so this is where it just gets really interesting, because you really just kind of have to compare the statements against each other.
And the cool thing is that you can really attack it at any kind of angle you want, sort of, I mean, there's no real wrong way to go about it. It's like once you start to find maybe a contradiction between two jurors, or you might find the evidence that one juror might need to change their mind. It's like, I mean, you could really kind of even wing it a little bit here,
Yeah. And I just love the music that plays. I mean, the soundtrack is just, and they use live instruments this time.
We'll get into the soundtrack here in a little bit.
We will, but
when we're done with the cases.
But yeah, the examination theme that plays while you're while you're doing the summation examination is a lot of fun. And there's kind of this sense of urgency, because it's like, this is your last chance to turn things around, and I really like it.
Yes! I will become a lawyer. I have to.
Susato Mikotoba, judicial assistant to the defense.
I'm determined to bring about change in our legal system.
Now, let us engage in the art of deduction. Mr. Naruhodō.
It's a great pleasure to meet you both. My name is Iris Wilson.
The Nipponese are a truly fascinating breed.
Objection! Objection! Hi!
Another new gameplay mechanic that we didn't bring up before, but it wasn't the tutorial trial, is actually a carryover from Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright, which is having multiple witnesses.
Yes, and these witnesses will react to the testimony of their fellow witnesses up on the stand.
Yeah, same with the jurors.
Same with the jurors, and so you can actually go and you can press them and just be like, "Excuse me."
Yeah.
Like, what's going on over here? You know?
They may have an odd reaction. So again, this mechanic was in the Professor Layton crossover game too, and so it's what makes having these multiple witness cross examinations a lot more fun. And so you kind of have to it gives you another point of attack other than having to press on statements or present evidence. So I really did enjoy those additions to the courtroom sections.
Yeah, it made for a more dynamic and, dare I say, a more technical kind of courtroom loop, you know?
Yeah.
Far more technical than any of the mainline series in my eyes.
Oh, yeah. In a lot of ways, these games improved on the formula. I mean, even just going to, like, the characters during investigation sections, actually, like, the character models actually facing each other or just kind of sitting in the background.
Exactly. And yeah, you can actually talk to multiple characters that way.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that, just kind of adding more technicality and making it, giving the players more to work with and more to do and more to immerse themselves with.
Yeah.
But moving on to case 4, this is the case of Soseki Natsume. This is the adventure of the Clouded Kokoro. As previously mentioned, Soseki Natsume is a real-life Japanese author who visited Japan, wrote I Am a Cat.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Among other things. And apparently actually really did hate his time in London.
Oh, no, he was not treated well in London, needless to say.
I mean, this dude had a double homicide trial back to back.
Yeah, seriously, what the fuck, man?
And was treated with contempt, because people are fucking racists. So, oh man, Soseki got the wrong end of the stick. This is technically the first actual proper investigation and trial in this game. And Ryunosuke actually kind of has to, one of the recurring elements here is that he's actually finally learning what it means to be a lawyer and what it means to believe in your client, despite the whole business with McGilded from earlier, but Natsume is somebody he can actually believe in, a fellow countryman, and somebody who desperately needs help because without Naruhodo's help, he's toast.
Yeah, he's done. Yeah, exactly. And just first of all, Soseki's character is great because he's so neurotic. He's just always looking behind him.
Yes. Apparently they got permission from the family for that portrayal.
That's awesome. Hell yeah.
So
That's cool.
I love him. He's a great character.
And also how he does alliterative cheers or whatever.
I sum it up in 16 salient words or less. And then Ryunosuke does it in exactly 16 words.
And he's just like, all right then.
What is it? Locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire.
Mr. Locum student Naruhodo.
Yeah, that's it. Mr. Locum student Naruhodo Esquire.
Yes, exactly. That was the full title that he gave him.
But by the way, this case is actually not a murder. It's an attempted murder.
Yeah. There's something else a little different for this series. Is we don't have it's more of an assault in a way.
Yeah. Which will come up. The events of this case actually have a bearing on the second Soseki case, which doesn't show up until the second game.
Oh, okay.
As kind of a flashback. These are a little asynchronous. Well, actually, at one point, the two Soseki trials were intended to be part of the same case, and there were just going to be two separate trials, kind of like Case 3 in Spirit of Justice, where it's the same defendant, but just two separate murders.
Yeah.
And so they had to scrap it, and so eventually they just took the second Soseki case and threw it into Great Ace Attorney 2, and actually made it relevant to the overall plot, which was really kind of actually cool.
Interesting.
But yeah, so there are some characters that are introduced in this case, some quirky characters that you see, and they kind of just pop up and then they disappear, and you're like, oh, okay. And
yeah. I mean, I gotta say, I really like the Gyarados.
The Gyarados were cool. I mean, ultimately, the technical actual culprit of this case was Mrs. Gyarados. This is the closest as it comes to the fucking bust.
It is,
Murder.
but it's like in the end it was just an accident, just a freak fucking accident, and I mean I honestly felt bad for everyone involved here.
But what, wasn't it? You do feel bad for everyone involved. But once the lines connect and you're like, oh, like did you have that moment where you're like, is that what fucking happened?
It's like oh, did she fucking throw a knife and it actually hit this poor girl?
Yeah.
It's like. But then it doesn't make sense because her body is like all the way across the street.
Yeah.
And that's where the witnesses, Pat and Rolly.
Oh man, they're adorable.
I love them so much. They're just so precious.
But compare the beats to the Gyarados.
Exactly.
Because
it's purposely kind of juxtaposed.
I was just about to say that is an intentional juxtaposition of this younger couple that are very much, in their honeymoon phase, and the Gyarados.
Well, they're thinking of their first anniversary even.
Yeah. And then you have the Gyarados where John is actually to the outside world pretending his wife is his maid.
I know, right?
And she's flinging, flaming books and knives at him.
Like not even giving a fuck if the fucking goddamn armoire or whatever fucking catches fire, the bookshelf.
But I gotta tell you, man, I fucking started tearing up at the end, whenever he picks her up like he did on the wedding night.
Yeah, I was just like,
oh, he does love her. He stands up and everything for her too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was actually very sweet, and it's just like you really realize it's like, oh, this lady fucked up. That's what it is. This is an actual fuck up.
Yeah.
And so I actually genuinely felt bad for her. I felt bad for Rolly. I mean, it's like the dude.
So did Van Zeeks, apparently.
So Van Zeeks was just like, Rolly, go. Pat, Rolly, just go.
An interesting humanization of him in his second case. He returns, and in this case, this is actually a little bit out. Not what the type of case he normally takes on, as the suspect isn't like a heinous criminal. No, he returns specifically to duel Naruhodō.
Yeah, specifically, exactly. I mean, he's just kind of drawn to matching wits with him in a courtroom, and it leads to such great entertainment in this game.
Yeah,
and everything.
Yeah, you get really more insight into his character. You learn more about the whole Reaper of the Bailey thing. The mystery unfolds. If anything, this is the case that would feel the most like a filler case, but at the end of the day, when you consider this and the other Soseki case together, it does become significant to the overall plot still.
Yeah.
And it's very much needed. And so what feels like a case 3 is actually like is actually a pretty good case.
It really is. It's actually really interesting. I mean, it's a case 4 this time.
It's a case 4 this time.
So it's like, yeah, it's kind of an interesting flip around when you compare it to the other Ace Attorney games.
Yeah, it is. All right. Well, I guess getting into the final case, this is the case. So the previous one, by the way, was the Adventure of the Runaway Room. I don't think we mentioned that.
Yeah, it was the Adventure of the Runaway Room.
That was the omnibus case. This is the Adventure of the Unspeakable Story, which has some ties to the Hound of the Baskervilles.
Yeah. This is a manuscript that Iris wrote that's being held in Windabank's pawn shop.
Mr. Windabank.
Oh, Mr. Windabank. He has no chill whatsoever, man. He just straight up grabs his revolver and says, like, it's like, if something happens to my store, I'll do it. I don't fucking care. I will fucking do it. I will do it.
Oh, man.
Poor guy.
Sometimes when I'm playing these games, I'm imagining them being, like, adapted,
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm just wondering, I'm like... This might be a little bit difficult. Like just this is just total willingness to just point a gun to his head and end his life right there. You kind of wonder when he's found dead, like maybe he did it himself.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, the man was suicidal. It's just it's just the placement of his bullet that would have made that a little impossible. I mean,
right.
He was shot in the back.
Right.
So but also I'm gonna say right now that a skulkin's never sulkin.
Skulkin's never sulkin.
Skulkin's never sulkin. Yeah, we are introducing the Skulkin brothers, my man. Like, we'll get into them here in a little bit, but I just want to say, yeah, no, a Skulkin's never sulkin.
This is a pretty good final case. But again, it's not going to have like everything, like don't expect all of the plot threads to be, completely unraveled by this point, as this is one half of a story, really. But in regard to the overall mystery that's been raised since at least the McGilded case, I think it does a good job of kind of wrapping some of that up and.
Like, for one, confirming that McGilded was, in fact, the culprit of his case.
Right.
Like, we pretty much get full-on confirmation with Iris and Hurley's blood machine chemical that they make, the blood grenade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Herlock gets shot in this case, so he's actually kind of put out of action for a little while.
He is. Not before we get a dance of deduction. Like, I think it's the final dance of deduction of this game.
And it's another one that actually features the actual plot of a home story. As
exactly.
The ridiculous solution.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, that sounds far-fetched, but it's like, yeah, y'all haven't actually read Sherlock Holmes canon, have you? It's like, I mean, yeah, it does get that kind of outlandish.
When they started questioning things, I was a little off-put because this character introduces himself as Egbert Benedict. In Ace Attorney canon, that's really not that weird. There's a fucking character in this universe named Deadman.
Exactly. No. In fact, you need to know that his name in fact means dead man, right? You know that, right?
I mean, it's the sheer genius.
Genius of it. It's pure genius.
It's the subtlety.
It's just pure subtlety of dead man, dead.
Peace, and for God's fucking sake, peace, love, and understanding.
Hey, that's my boy right there. He is awesome. He is metal as fuck.
Excuse me if I didn't immediately tag this character as suspicious for being named Egbert Benedict.
I know, right? Exactly. It's like, Egbert Benedict, really, man?
I love how they comment on it. That's such an obvious fake-sounding name. I'm like, there's a character in this universe named Date Man. And peace, love, and understanding.
Exactly.
In the future, mind you, but still.
No, it's like the main detective of the original trilogy is Dick Gumshoe. Come on now. I mean, Jesus.
Oh man, we didn't get into the inspector of this.
Greg Z.
Greg Z. Tobias Gregson. Oh man, he's another character from the canon.
Who is incidentally only a few years older than I am.
Really?
Apparently, yeah. He's in his early to mid 40s.
And apparently in the books, Holmes does describe him as the most competent among Scotland Yard detectives.
Oh, he's very
Which
competent.
doesn't mean a lot, but still.
Yeah, still. I mean, hey, he does his job well.
Yeah. Always with the fish and chips.
Always with the damn fish and chips, man. It's like, did you even put any vinegar on that? Any salt and vinegar or anything like that?
And I like how he's just like completely, just his demeanor completely changes around Iris because of what she's going to write about him.
I know, right? It's like, no, this little girl has my reputation in her hands. It's like, I mean, but he's still kind of patronizing a little bit to her, sort of.
Yeah. Yes, your ladyship.
Oh yeah, just takes his hat off and just that kind of delivery, It's like
ta.
It's like ta. Thank you. It's like
hold it. But Gregson's a fun character. Gina is Jenny is the defendant in this case. It's a locked room mystery like the steamship one, but she's locked in the room with Mr. Windibank, shot in the back. So doesn't seem like it could have been anyone else.
Yeah.
And I love how Ace Attorney tackles these locked room mysteries. It's always a lot of fun just kind of figuring out how it actually happened.
Yeah, brings up memories of Kurain Village a little bit. With Maya. It's like, come on, how many times are we going to accuse Maya of murder? How many times are we going to do this?
How many times? So it's a lot of fun just kind of unraveling those, like, oh, what if the steamship moved so that the lock... Yeah, did you catch on to that the first time?
With the books in the bookshelf that, they're obviously disheveled after that happens halfway through the case? Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
and they pointed
I was
out.
Just like,
so
okay,
there's a point,
on.
I think, in the case where you're like, we're going back to case 2, but there's a point where I think you kind of figure out the solution midway through because you see it happen. You see the door lock or unlock itself, and you're like,
you actually see it happen in the background, and you take note of that, and you bring it up.
The locked room in Mr. Windibank's pawnbrokery though is a little bit more convoluted. There's a device that Iris invented that can instantly create cat flaps at any door.
Yeah, this is probably this is where the fantastical technology really comes into play here. It's like It's such a specific device, and the fact that it becomes like the determining piece of evidence in this case is just beyond me, man. It's
a little it's a little wacky. Like I said, the technology is where we get like the supernatural aspect of the other games, you know.
It's just that fantastical steampunk technology that shouldn't exist in that time, you know.
You're telling me, man, I don't even want to tell you what happens in the final case, because that one actually pisses a lot of people off. I kind of just take it with the grain of salt. Like, there's spirit mediums in this universe.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cat flap machine was kind of fun. I liked how the culprit of this case, Mr. Eggert Benedict himself, his name was Ashley Graydon. So great to see another man named Ashley.
Another Ashley being brought up here.
And he's actually kind of a really cool culprit.
He really is. I mean, yeah, he and also he's involved in the actual espionage at the heart of this case and everything with the Gilded and whatnot. But I mean, also it's like when you actually figure out that he was actually born on the same block and in the same place as the Skulkins.
Yep.
Yeah. Which, by the way, the Skulkins, man. Let's talk about the Skulkins.
Never sulking.
The Skulkins never sulking, governor. It's like,
governor.
Hello, governor. It's just like, for one, they're obvious Wario and Waluigi clones.
Yeah.
Very obvious, you know. Like, even to the point that the shorter brother is the older one.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. And I love how they keep on trying to make Gregson part of their squad. He's like, they keep on thinking that he's their older brother. And he's just like, no, don't lump me in with this lot right here. It's like,
Keeps on saying it, yeah. But he's there with them during all the cross-examinations.
Yeah, which is interesting.
Okay, so one really cool aspect of this case, and something you really have to pay attention to or you'll mess up, is later on in the case, you'll be asked to point to who should have a specific piece of evidence, the either the music box or the disc. I think it was one of the discs, yeah. And so the natural answer would be Gregson, but if you were paying attention, and during a particular cross-examination, you happened to look and pursue Gregson shaking one of the Skulkin brothers.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you might remember that and realize that the music box should be on Mr. Skulkin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's on the taller Skulkin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was actually really cool, because I think in order to progress, you do have to catch them doing it. So the game kind of like shows you this moment that doesn't seem to have any significance, but you have to pursue it to progress, right? And then later on, you know, they kind of side eye you. They're like, you know, well, would it really be on Gregson? Like, would he be dumb enough to have the music box on him? And you're like, oh, and so you kind of have to think, you know?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, no, he would have to offload it at some point if he really wanted to, and making the deal was the way that he offloaded it and everything. So, yeah, I mean, it does make sense when you really actually look at it and you really, like, just watch what he does on the stand.
Yeah, it's something, you know, again, like, yeah, you just kind of pay attention to these things. Also, this case ends with one of my favorite sequences. Let's not forget, Inspector, that you, a Scotland Yard officer, leaked confidential case details to a witness, that you continue to lie in court, and all because by fair means or foul, you're determined to do your duty. Well, by fair means or foul, I'm prepared to do mine. I will stop at nothing to protect my client. I don't care who I make an enemy of.
Exactly. That is iconic right there. Iconic fucking dialogue.
Yeah, because he's like, you idiot, you'll be making an enemy of the British Empire, you know.
And then there's Von Zeke's response to it.
You know, a toast to you know, finding the truth by fair means or foul, you know. And Von Zeke's even helps you out there.
Yeah, it's like, that's iconic right there, man. It's like, I had goosebumps at that moment. I was like, whoa.
If you notice at the end of most of the cases, Van Zeeks does tend to help you out. You know,
a little bit, yeah, he does.
You know, once he arrives at the conclusion, it's like, okay, you know. But yeah, there at the very end, you know, he's the one that's like, yeah, no, let's play the music disc with the confidential government secrets. You know.
But then they add an extra layer to that when they play it together. It is Morse code, but the one juror that can actually understand it, she's just like, I'm not really sure what that is because it sounds like gibberish.
Yeah, but it turns out it's encoded in Japanese.
Yeah, it's Japanese Morse code. It's like every country has their own standard of Morse code according to their language and everything, so that makes sense.
Right.
So, I mean, once you put that two and two together there, it's just like, oh, okay. And it's not really revealed until after the case when you've rushed off to catch Susie.
Yeah.
After the case has been resolved, you and Hurley and Iris, you take an express train, which causes all kinds of chaos, apparently, that Hurley has to pay for. And, they catch Susato about to throw the British Book of Law into the ocean.
Yep.
And then then we start to come to the realization of what's actually on those discs, and we hear Kazuma Asogi. Yep. And it's just like, why is Kazuma's name being brought up in international espionage communications? Who else was it? It was also
Aishin.
Aishin, yeah.
Aishin and it's Kazuma and Aishin.
Interesting. So it's like, why is Kazuma's name being brought up like that? It's like in an international communique. It's like,
Yeah, like what's going on here? Exactly.
Yeah. It's like, what exactly was on the rest of those discs? You know,
that's a mystery to be resolved. So, the game kind of ends on that note. And so you realize that the story's not over yet. Now, originally when this was released, it was this game came out, I think in 2015. And then we got Spirit of Justice in 2016. And then Great Ace Attorney 2 in 2017. So, there was some time left in between these. Now that these have been packaged together conveniently, you can play them back to back. I actually played the cases in chronological order. So I actually played the second Soseki case when it was supposed to. I don't recommend doing that for your first playthrough because there are some introductory scenes that don't make a lot of sense.
I can imagine so. I mean, isn't that case kind of halfway through the next game, or
it's the second case?
It's always the second case. Okay.
Yeah. But in any case, these games are meant to be played back to back, I believe, and I'm glad that they're packaged together and that they were eventually localized because the longest time they weren't. It wasn't until 2021 that we actually got these in the States, and apparently that's because they didn't do so well.
Yeah, they didn't do well in Japan at all,
which is a surprise because like this is Ace Attorney like at its peak, really. I mean, this and the original trilogy, in my opinion, are like right up there for me. But in a lot of ways, this is kind of superior in terms of technical gameplay.
I know why. Not enough big booby anime women. No, there wasn't enough April May or Mia Fey or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what, or Desiree or anything like that.
That must be it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is.
And in fact, it due to the lackluster sales of the first game, caused some budget cuts, I think, with the second game, and so they cut things like the animated cutscenes that are in this one.
Oh, and the animated cutscenes in this game are beautiful. Beautifully done, beautifully voice acted.
Yeah.
Really well done anime cutscenes.
Sorely missing from the second game, although they do have just full 3D cutscenes instead for the important parts. But I did like those anime cutscenes. I mean, we see them in Dual Destinies and Spirit of Justice too. But I felt like these ones were actually better quality.
Yeah,
anime. Just a nice touch overall that kind of just carries the vibe. We touched on the music earlier.
Oh my God, this is quite possibly the greatest game soundtrack I've heard in a long time. It's purely orchestral. I mean, it's fully orchestral,
and it's got that characteristic Ace Attorney feel to it while being Victorian.
Victorian, but also very. It's like a melding of classical British music with traditional Japanese notation and everything. So it's it's kind of the best of both the Victorian and the Meiji era there.
Yeah, and then everything from the cross-examination themes to the objection theme and
that beautiful song that's in whenever you're at the actual Naruhodō law firm at their office. It's like dun 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 dun. That is beautiful.
That one is beautiful. I also like. I think that's actually Susato's theme.
That's Susato's theme. It's so beautiful. I love it.
I also like Holmes's themes or Sholmes's themes. like his main theme, and then like the dance of deduction themes that like progress as you go through the sections of the dance of deduction.
Yeah,
those are great. I like how they withhold their pursuit theme. This may be one of my favorite pursuit themes in the series, and they withhold it for the final case.
they do, and it's so awesome. That's a is that one? Or is that from Great Ace Attorney 2? I think that's from the second one.
Yeah, the second one like has a pursuit theme at the very end that's actually kind of an arrangement of Ryunosuke's objection theme.
Okay, but this was more like dun 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 dun
Dun dun dun dun dun dun dun dun dun.
fuck yeah. Beautiful. I love it.
And Great Ace Attorney 2 adds like a prelude section that actually works really well seamlessly into the actual pursuit theme that they play at all of their cases. That just chef's kiss.
Or even Iris's theme, which is just this really fun, bouncy, kind of popping kind of sound in the background. It's just really fun.
Kazuma's theme.
Or Kazuma's theme is just like, really stoic, you're just like, oh man, he's a badass. And he has a badass theme song.
I want to say more. We'll save it for the second game.
Oh man, it's like, the music in this game is superlative. And I think it's what really makes this the top-notch Ace Attorney game.
Yeah, the soundtrack just sells it. I mean, that's what makes this really work. Even though it's a visual novel adventure type, I think what really makes Ace Attorney feel compelling is the music, and the sound design. That really sells the thing, and it makes it feel like you're actually participating. That, and then there is quite a bit of degree of actual like decision making and movement, more so than in other strict visual novels.
Yeah.
But in this sense, even more so, we get some of that. Like you mentioned earlier, you can select character models in the background of scenes in order to talk to them. So you're adding a little bit more of an element. And with the use of 3D, we can do a lot more with these character animations, and with the dance of deductions. I mean, that's just mesmerizing, just watching them just kind of dance around the room and the camera's rotating around. This is something that wasn't possible in, the mainline Ace Attorney games.
No, it's like that was all just straight sprite-based. But these 3D models, I mean, yeah, it's like these are the most expressive Phoenix Wright or Ace Attorney characters I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like the most expressive. I mean, just looking at Herlock alone.
Looking at Herlock, like he may have more animations than any other character. That's why like he's my favorite. He's just got like just so many different moods. I mean, I love his like.
Oh, he's like manic depressive or something. Man.
Yeah, he gets in that mood,
and he's just like, oh, nothing is worth anything.
Fuck
life, he just goes into straight fuck life mode.
He does. And then going back to, Ryunosuke's, his natural, his progression as a lawyer, we see that through his character animations as he becomes more confident. We see less of the nervous animations, more of the confident ones. We see him transition away from, and using objection properly in court. In the first case, he does it midway through. And then, in his second actual trial, he's still kind of doing the yes thing at the beginning of it, but as he comes into his own, as he comes into his element, you kind of see that, and that even builds up throughout the second game as well, as you see him become a more competent lawyer. I think his character arc is just really visible here. And I mean, Phoenix had a similar progression, but it felt a little more gradual. I think here it's a little bit more visible. You can see how he comes from somebody who wasn't even a law student to a lawyer who ends up essentially dismantling the British judiciary system. Spoiler alert.
Excellent.
But yeah, like him, Susato with her little book that she pulls out of her sleeve, and
oh, I love that, and she always knows exactly what to bring up, and she is really the best judicial assistant.
Oh, for real,
she is so cool.
I mean, if anything, like based on legal expertise, it's almost like she should have been the one to be the lawyer, and Ryunosuke should have been the legal assistant.
It kind of feels that way a little bit, right?
It feels that way at first, but what Ryunosuke has, that Susato lacks, or even Kazuma to an extent, is just this conviction and really just this ability, similar to Phoenix, to just turn things about on their head and to come up with these You know, he doesn't seem to rely as much on bluffing as Phoenix does.
No, that's not really a part of his actual repertoire. He's really about just kind of really picking apart the actual testimonies and exposing the contradictions in a more natural way, you know?
In my opinion, Ryunosuke is actually the most competent playable lawyer in the games by the end of his character journey.
Yeah.
Or really midway through. Just start playing through the second game and you'll see what I mean. Like, even just the way he builds his cases is like, it is just night and day difference.
Yeah.
Something I said before, earlier about Phoenix and like the later games too, but like you kind of get to see Ryunosuke kind of go through this growth and be, come into his own, and it's really beautiful. Just this foreign exchange law student who wasn't even supposed to be there.
Yeah.
Just come in and just fuck shit up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even getting the attention of like one of the foremost prosecutors in the land, getting him to come out of a 5-year hiatus to get back into the Bailey.
Well, to be fair, he came out of the hiatus for McGilded, but he continued to prosecute and even prosecuted clients he normally wouldn't in order to lock swords with Ryunosuke. And then that's a pretty big deal. So in a sense, Ryunosuke helped him come out of retirement. So there's a lot of mysteries unsolved, like the Reaper of the Bailey, even some of the circumstances around McGilded and, why he had that music box and, everything. But all in all, I mean, I think that it's a pretty fantastic story. Like I said, it's just you've got to play the second game to finish it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as it stands right now, I only have half of the story. So,
but what are your final thoughts on the Great Ace Attorney Adventures?
This is a more emotionally rending game than the previous ones. I mean, there were some moments where I teared up hardcore because it's just like, oh damn, like especially Susato's last moments in the game. It's just like she gives that final takedown just so that she doesn't have to face Naruhodō, before she leaves the next day, And this is like I said before, a more technical game with the jury summations and the whole things with the witnesses and the dance of deduction and the way that investigations are actually played out here. It's like it's way more technical as far as the gameplay loop is concerned in multiple levels, and it also shows reverence for the historical period of its time by, other than some of the more random steampunk elements, keeping it very grounded in the historical, in the actual historicity of Victorian England.
Yeah.
And honestly, this is quite possibly the best cast of characters of any of these games.
And so many are so good.
And it's like, my God, I mean, we in the original game we had Gumshoe, we had Miles, we had Francesca. I mean, those are butts. And the butts. It's like we had great characters there, and these characters are just so far ahead of them in so many ways. Especially that nice little family that they kind of form at the end. With Iris and Hurley and Runo and Susie.
Yes,
it's like, I mean, it's very beautiful, very poignant, and it has like even greater stakes than any other Ace Attorney game. With the actual international intrigue that's brought into it.
Yeah,
it has higher stakes, and it just has a better overall presentation of the classic, both the classic gameplay loop and the new, more modernized additions to it. So I think that so far, this first game in and of itself is a masterpiece. I very rarely say that about video games, honestly. There's very few of them that I will say is a masterpiece. This is one of them.
It really is, man. And as for somebody who just immensely loves the Ace Attorney series, this just made me fall doubly in love with it. It's like I was already in love, and this made me fall like even more badly in love with the franchise in a way that, the previous games between the trilogy and this just hadn't. I played through the original trilogy, and that was just like peak, and then I just kept wanting to play, and the other games were really good, but this was what brought me back and was like, oh my God, and it even does a few things better, and like the characters, the story, the emotion, the music, everything is just perfect. It's so good. I like that they're even kind of trying to like break conventions a little bit and actually like try out some new things. Something that the later mainline games, I don't think do quite as well. I mean, they always are trying to add some new gimmick, and this one kind of focused less on having like a main gimmick and kind of just throwing a bunch of them in that actually kind of work well with the existing gameplay loop. Like, let's add multiple witnesses. That makes sense. Let's go ahead and do it. Technically, this game did introduce that, Professor Layton did, but this brought it to the main games, or I guess these are technically considered spin-offs as well, but
Yeah.
But anyway, more people played these than the Professor Layton one, which is a masterpiece as well. I love that one. I'd love to talk about it someday. But taking the summation examination, like involving the jury in the trial, natural, makes sense. The dance of deduction, let's make those investigation sections even more fun, and actually, this game in a lot of ways addresses some of the issues, some of the staleness. And despite the fact that a lot of the plot, threads are very parallel to things in the mainline games.
Yeah.
This still feels like a breath of fresh air, both in terms of gameplay and story. Despite the fact that at its core, it's essentially the same thing. It's better. Like this feels like the natural evolution of the series. It almost feels like, maybe when Shu Takumi didn't want to continue to do stories with Phoenix Wright, this is kind of something, this is what he would have had in mind. Like, let's just kind of just focus on an entirely new setting within this universe. And,
Yeah.
Maybe that's what Ace Attorney is supposed to be, really, and how it should. But even going beyond that, regardless of who's the protagonist or what setting it's in, like I said, the number of improvements they made to the formula, some of which, didn't even make its way back into Spirit of Justice, which I was surprised, because there's just so many things that just make sense, that make this game more impressive and make it fulfill its mission a little bit better. So it's a fantastic game. It is still a good entry point into the franchise, as it doesn't have really, any ties to anything else. You don't need any prior knowledge. That being said, I do recommend starting with the trilogy if you haven't played those. But after that, I mean, you can really play these at any point.
Yeah.
But I recommend you do play them together. Like, don't play like in release order, for instance. Play Great Ace Attorney 1 and 2 back to back.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's the way to do it.
And we'll have more to say about Great Ace Attorney 2 in particular on part 2 of this episode.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to playing the second game. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is, a fitting conclusion to what started here. But I think Great Ace Attorney 1 Adventures gets a lot of points just for being the first to do this and kind of revolutionizing the series in a lot of ways. And I'm really excited to see, what we get with Ace Attorney 7, now that we've actually had a few years. And, I think that, maybe the team on Spirit of Justice was already working on it while this was in development,
Yeah.
And that's why we didn't see as much, synchronicity. But yeah, I mean, Great Ace Attorney 1, what else is there to say? It is a fantastic fucking game. Go play it, especially if you're an Ace Attorney fan. Like you need to play these two. Start with the first one, and then make your way through. It's really a hell of a trip.
It really is.
But Beau, what's going on Collateral Cinema? I know we just did wrap up our season.
Yes, right now we have the season finale, Cloak and Dagger, out. We will be doing our anniversary episode here very soon, our Mike-versary, I should say, and we will be talking about Happiness of the Katakuri, so look for that. And on Collateral Let's Play, look for our 3 hours of cartoon-based beat-em-ups to fall asleep to. I will have that video out very soon, and I'm not sure what I was going to do after that. I think I was going to do like maybe Double Dragon or Cadillacs and Dinosaurs or something like that. So look for that on our YouTube channel. Hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell whenever you go there. So
fuck yeah. As for Collateral Gaming, like I said, part 2 of Great Ace Attorney Chronicles on the Great Ace Attorney 2 Adventures. We're also going to have an episode in the interim on the Paper Mario remake. I've been playing that. Loving the hell out of it. I mean, yeah, there's a frame drop or whatever, but other than that, it's the same game, and it's fun playing a game from my childhood again. So excited to talk about that. Probably going to be a solo episode, but we could do maybe one of those this season. I'm comfortable with it.
yeah.
Other than that, we'll be getting into like the rest of our season here. I know we have Nightfire and Dune.
Wow.
To get through. And that should be the end of Collateral Gaming Season 6. We'll be opening up Season 7 in September or October. I know October, we're already going to be doing Silent Hill, too.
Yeah.
So there's that.
It's like, oh, no, the women's are uggos. Oh, no.
Yeah, apparently. So yeah, lots of content coming soon. We'll have links to our socials and various platforms in the show notes. But you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Check out Collateral Gaming and Collateral Cinema on Patreon, where we have exclusive commentaries. We do have a merch shop set up on TeePublic now. We have everything from tees, jackets, hats to tapestries, stickers, mugs, phone cases.
Yeah, exactly.
We got it all, bro.
Yeah, we got it all, bro. It's like, and we have it in with our logos for Collateral Media, Collateral Gaming, and Collateral Cinema. And we probably will have exclusive designs out very soon. I really want to have a design involving Robert because we just need to make Robert into an icon.
I mean, he's just a character.
He's an icon.
He's an icon.
He's iconic. We got to make him iconic, because he cannot. And he will not. And we have to talk to his agent.
Better talk to his agent.
We have to talk to his agent. So, I mean, exactly. So, yeah, look for that. And we do have a Spreadshirt account as well. But, I mean, I don't know. We pushed the TeePublic more because they actually reached out to us and gave us an affiliate link and everything. So, yeah, we're going to push the TeePublic a little more.
Yeah, but... yeah, stick around for more content very soon.
Oh, and also I did a guest spot with Cat Bus Russ on the 90 for Chill podcast. I think that was called 90 for Chill. We talked about the first Mortal Kombat game.
Fuck yeah.
So I got to revisit that. We of course did our episode on that, like a few seasons ago. So it was fun getting the DVD out and talking about it again.
Fuck yeah.
I mean, even maybe learning a few new things about it. So, yeah, look for that on the 90 for Chill with Cat Bus Russ. Look for that.
Hell yeah, man. Well, with all that being said, I think there's only one more thing for us to say.
Only one word to say.
I mean, otherwise, we could just keep doing this podcast forever. What do you think about that, Beau?
I think that I have an objection!
Collateral Gaming is a Collateral Media podcast. All music and game clips are owned by their respective creators and are used for educational purposes only. Please don't sue us. We're poor.